Your friends are scrolling through short content, but you, my friend, you're here to learn. Welcome to TRS Clips. What would you like to say about geopolitics?
Geopolitics is very complex, man. It depends on what you want to know. Because I've been studying geopolitics for about 2 years now, and it has taught me so much about business.
And life?
Life, not really, because I'm not a very deep person. I'm a very shallow person, bro. I don't think so much. I don't meditate. I don't have like deep philosophies of life, but I've got very firm philosophies about business. And before I studied about geopolitics, I always thought, yeah, there is geopolitics and there is business, just like everybody thinks. And then I started to realize that geopolitics is such a powerful market force that as an entrepreneur, if you don't understand geopolitics, you're missing out on a lot. But at the same time, if you understand geopolitics, it will give you a very big competitive edge.
For example?
For example, let's take the example of Russia-Ukraine war. When the Russia-Ukraine war happened, do you know the edible oil market, it got shattered. Do you know what happened? So, if you look at the edible oil market, you will see that there are 4 types of oils. Canola, soybean, palm oil, sunflower oil. Sunflower oil, 80% of it comes from Russia and Ukraine. Soybean comes from Argentina and Brazil. Canola oil comes from Canada. And palm oil comes from Indonesia and Malaysia. Now, what happened during that time was that in Argentina, they had a bad harvest season. Same was the case with Canada. So, soybean oil and canola oil, they were available in very less quantities. Then, when it comes to sunflower oil, because most of it came from Russia and Ukraine, the trade lines got cut off. So, the entire load of edible oils fell upon Indonesia and Malaysia because they were the only ones who had palm oil. Now, when the entire demand got channelized towards palm oil, the cost of palm oil shot up. Now, most people will ask, so what if palm oil's cost shoots up? When it shot up, the FMCG companies, they suffered a lot. You know why? Because the soap that we use, 20% of the cost of manufacturing that soap goes into palm oil. So when the cost of palm oil shoots up by 100%, either the profit margins of these FMCG companies shrinks or they'll have to increase the cost. Similarly, the cost of fertilizer, it increased drastically because again, most of it comes from Russia and Ukraine. As a result, the cost of producing food shot up and lots of other things happened. So, and during this time, by the way, one billionaire became a beneficiary of this palm oil demand. And that was Adani. You know how? When Indonesia, after a certain point, they banned the export of palm oil. But they did not ban the export of crude palm oil. They banned the export of refined palm oil.
Why?
Because it was just another barrier. So if you want to ship crude palm oil, you can ship it immediately, but still somebody will have to process it. But if you ship refined palm oil, because all the processing is done over here itself, you could immediately ship it and it is ready to use. So it's almost like just putting out one more barrier. So when they started shipping out crude palm oil, anybody who processed crude palm oil became a beneficiary. In India, that was the Adanis. So do you realize geopolitics, a simple, not so simple, but if a major event like Russia-Ukraine war happens, it affects everybody. And when the Russia-Ukraine war happened, because the oil price shot up, inflation happened all across the world. In India, because inflation shot up, the RBI had to increase the repo rate, as in the rate at which they lend to the banks. And because of that, the interest rates to people like you and me, that increased. So our home loan EMI increased because of the Russia-Ukraine war. Because our home loan EMI increased, our purchase power decreased. As a result, less people went to movie theaters, less people bought fancy clothes, because of which their business got affected. But if you today go out there and ask an entrepreneur who's dealing with clothes as to how does RBI's repo rate affect his business, they'll have no clue. And if you apply that to today's context, today because we are seeing the diplomatic battle between India and Canada, if there is a manufacturer in India for whom canola oil is an important raw material, when this diplomatic battle comes in the news, this person will be able to understand that if things go bad, India might impose import duty on canola oil, which means the price of canola oil in India might shoot up. As a result, he needs to stock up his inventory. This is the power of geopolitics. It helps you understand a very powerful market force, which could give you a competitive edge over your competitors.
You get an X-ray on the world of business because of geopolitics.
That your competitors are ignoring right now.
Would you argue that now, because geopolitics is a trend on YouTube India at least, like I don't know how it's become a trend, but people have gotten really into it.
Yeah.
You agree?
Because of the war.
I think generally even more. Like because I remember doing a lot of episodes with Abhijit Chavda way before the war, 2 years before the war, and I was like, why are people liking this content suddenly out of the blue? Okay, I'll do geopolitics. That's how my mind as a podcaster works. Like, I just want to survive.
Okay.
My point is, like, I think Indians are generally very into geopolitics now. What will that result in for a whole nation? And first of all, is it fair to say that? Or at least a significant segment is into geopolitics?
Because a significant number of people are interested in geopolitics, what I believe is that the political system in India will actually get stressed. You know why? Because now that we're seeing the administration of other countries, people are getting new benchmarks. For example, earlier if you asked somebody about how did Singapore grow so fast, nobody will have an answer. But today if you go and ask people as to why is Singapore where it is, at least in the top tier of India, people will say it is because of Lee Kuan Yew, who is known as the father of Singapore. In 30 years, he turned Singapore into one of the most legendary countries out there. So people from India, if they never come to know about Singapore, their benchmark of great governance will be Congress. Right? But if they know about Lee Kuan Yew, their benchmark of great governance will be Singapore. Similarly, earlier, and you must have seen this on Twitter, that every time something between India and Pakistan happens, people are like, let's go to war. But now, after they have actually seen a war, people will know what is the cost of war. So that will result into a more matured audience who will know that right governance is not about going to war, it's about avoiding war. Raghu Raman sir says this very often, that war is a funny game. The only way to win it is to not play it at all. Right? So when this benchmark of great governance and a mature audience comes up, I think our political system will have to push its limits to become better and better. Simple example, 10 years back, nobody was interested in China. But today, at least with our contents, we can see that people are deeply interested to understand what's happening in China. And when people started to understand why is China so developed and we are not so developed, the answer is liberalization. They liberalized their economy in 1978. It took us another 13 years. We opened up our economy in 1991, right? So now people understand the power of liberalization. Why is it important to have foreign direct investment in India? And I remember when I was a child, I think I was in 10th or 11th standard, there was a huge debate about foreign direct investment as to why FDI is bad for India. But now that people have seen China, they know FDI is great for India. You got to have more international players here.
What was the reason it was even a debate back then?
The simple reason was people thought if Walmart comes to India, all the small shops, they will suffer losses. So they perceived a foreign entity as a rival who will kill the business. But in reality, what happened is that when more and more foreign companies came to India, business actually expanded. Business actually grew in India because of foreign entities. New benchmarks were set, because of which now even Indian companies have to stand up to the benchmark of the American companies to be able to do business and to be able to survive. So the mindset during that time was more socialistic. Let's just keep ourselves restricted to whatever we have and let's not bring in foreign entities, because anything that is foreign is obviously scary, right? That was the case. But now things have changed. People are like, how much FDI have you got? Why aren't we having more companies come in? Why isn't Apple manufacturing in India? And the moment Apple started manufacturing in India, people were so happy. The moment we heard this news that Reliance is getting in Shein, people became excited for two reasons. Number one, because of Shein, and number two, because we're getting a huge brand to India, which means more opportunities. So that's the mindset shift. New benchmarks and hence more expectations, hence more pressure on the leaders of our country.
So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you check out this playlist for more videos just like this. It's TRS Clips.